My younger sister got pregnant out of wedlock and vanished after giving birth to a boy in a back alley clinic. The doctor used the address she left behind to find my family, leaving the baby with me. My parents fell to their knees, begging me to adopt him. And just like that, I, a single woman, began the grueling journey of raising a child alone. Years later, after I had finally raised him, my sister returned. She arrived with a wealthy businessman on her arm, his thick gold chain gleaming in the sunlight. She clutched my son and wept, accusing me of being a jealous monster who had stolen him at birth and torn our family apart. My son, my pride and joy, turned away from me instantly and ran into her arms. My parents threw me out of the house. The neighbors' gossip became relentless torment. In despair, I jumped from the roof of my apartment building. When I opened my eyes again, I was back on the very day my sister had given birth. The pounding on my door jolted me awake at dawn, leaving me drenched in cold sweat. This was it, the moment the clinic doctor had knocked in my previous life, waking the whole neighborhood. He had handed me the baby, scolding me for being irresponsible. Only later did I learn the child was my sister's, and my parents had begged me to keep him. With no plans to marry, I had reluctantly agreed, a decision I had regretted every day since. The knocking came again, electrifying me with recognition. I bolted out of bed and yanked the door open. The doctor stood there, his voice dripping with condescension. "Lena," he began, "you can't just have a baby and abandon it. You know that's illegal." The neighbors were already peeking out of their doors. I stared at him for a moment before losing my temper. I ripped off my slipper and swung it at him with all my strength. "You goddamn vulture," I screamed. "How dare you show up here with this scam? I don't even have a boyfriend, let alone a baby. Do I look like I just gave birth?" The doctor froze. Mrs. Gable across the hall spoke first. "She's right. Lena works every day. I've never seen her with a baby bump." "Yeah, you must have the wrong person." "Wait, I know him. Isn't he the doctor from that sketchy clinic?" I planted my hands on my hips, slipper raised. "Sleazy old quack. Running a back alley clinic and trying to pin a baby on me? I'm calling the cops." His eyes widened in panic. I won't press charges for the assault." "Oh, you won't press charges?" I hissed, grabbing a fistful of his hair. "Too bad, because I'm not letting you get away." I dialed 911. "Hello? I'd like to report infant trafficking." "Don't you dare say that," he shrieked. "You better have a good story for the police," I snarled, "or I swear I will burn your clinic down." When the officers arrived, they found a bizarre scene. A bruised doctor, a swaddled newborn, and me in pajamas, slipper in hand. The crowd of neighbors buzzed with curiosity. "What's going on here?" the officers demanded. "She's the one." The patient left this address and name. The doctor sputtered, pulling out a medical file. The address was mine, and the name on the file was Lena Scott. I crossed my arms. "I have no idea what you're talking about. Someone's using my name to have a baby and trying to make me pay for it." Just then, my parents emerged from hiding. "Lena," my mother said sweetly, "since you're not planning to marry, why don't you just adopt him?" "Are you serious?" I snapped. "I'm not adopting a random baby we know nothing about. What if his parents are addicts? I'm not raising an ungrateful little monster." The doctor, furious, shoved the baby into my arms. "This is your family's problem. I'm done. Tell Stella she can raise her own kid. If I'd known you were this unreasonable, I never would have come." A gasp ran through the crowd. The truth was out. The baby belonged to my sister, Stella. "You're lying," I shouted, shoving the baby back toward him. "First you say he's mine. Now he belongs to Stella? Where's your proof? You've got none. You just want to dump this child on us." "Officer, I'm telling you, this man is trafficking infants." I crossed my arms, making it clear I wanted nothing to do with the situation. "Lena," my mother gasped, horrified. "Mom, Dad, don't be so naive. The world is full of scammers." Mrs. Gable from across the hall nodded.
"She's right."
This doctor first claimed the baby was Lena's, then switched to Stella. "He's lying." "Who knows where he got the baby?" another neighbor added. The doctor practically bounced in anger. "I'm Evan White and I don't lie. I've run my clinic for years. Do I look like a con artist?"
He pointed at me.
"Last night, Stella came begging me to deliver her baby. I even have her phone as proof." He produced a smartphone, and just one glance confirmed it was Stella's. My parents froze. The evidence was undeniable. The baby was hers. The neighborhood erupted in gossip. "Stella? She's just a kid. Who's the father? Who knows? She always hides under baggy clothes. I can't believe she was pregnant. Shut your mouths. My daughter is a good girl. My mother finally shouted. Say one more word, and I'll. Dr. White held up a sealed envelope. Stella told me to bring the baby here immediately after birth. She said her older sister would raise him. Officers, here's a letter she wrote herself. In my last life, there had been no letter. Stella had returned to destroy me, and Dr. White had helped her spin lies against me. He was a snake. I never should have gotten involved, he muttered. What a headache. The officer sighed. This is a domestic dispute. You all need to sort it out yourselves. I grabbed his arm. This isn't just a dispute. You expect us to believe Stella had a baby and ran off based only on a phone and letter? She could be in danger. The officer's expression hardened.
Fine.
You're taking us to your clinic.
Now.
While my parents trailed after them, I packed a suitcase. I wasn't staying in that house. A neighbor called after me. Lena, where are you going? I'm moving out, I said loud enough for all to hear. If I stay, my parents will expect me to raise that baby. It's Stella's child, not mine. I'm not married, and my future husband's family would never accept it. The neighbors nodded in agreement. You're right, Lena. Go. That poor girl. Stella has nerve. Maybe the doctor did something to her. No way. I ignored them. By the time my parents returned from the clinic, I was settled in my company dormitory. Soon my mother called, frantic. Lena, where did you go? I could hear a baby crying. I moved out, I said calmly. How could you leave? What about the baby? So they had confirmed the child was Stella's. Yet they still tried to tie it to me. Mom, what does this baby have to do with me? I didn't give birth to him. Right now, we need to find the father. Anyway, I have to work.
Bye.
At the office, my colleague Carol approached. Lena, I have someone I want you to meet, my nephew. He's 3 years older, a veteran, and owns his own restaurant. Lunch today. I agreed immediately. In my last life, I had been too afraid to date anyone while raising the baby. Meeting Cole this time, the connection was instant. We exchanged numbers and planned to see each other again. 2 weeks passed. My parents didn't contact me, and I stayed away from home. But then my mother found me at work. During a sales call, the security guard interrupted. Lena, your mother dropped off your son. He's screaming, come get him. My mind went blank for a moment. What son? I said, raising my voice so the office could hear. I'm not married. I don't have a son. Stop spreading rumors. The guard shrugged. I don't know. Just come down. Everyone in the office stared.
Carol gasped.
You've got to be kidding me. I put on my most bewildered expression. When we checked the security footage, I didn't recognize the woman who had dropped off the baby. Call the police. That's not my mother. I have no idea who she is, I instructed. This is child abandonment. I am not raising someone else's kid. The police were called, took the baby away, and I finally breathed a sigh of relief. This time, I would not be raising that ungrateful viper. Lena locked the door to her small dormitory apartment, pressing her back against it as if to shield herself from the chaos of the outside world. The baby, the doctor, the neighbors, the relentless guilt her parents tried to shove onto her, it all felt like a nightmare she was determined not to repeat. Yet, even as she tried to focus on the present, her mind kept drifting to Stella. Why had her sister disappeared? Why leave a baby behind and vanish without a word? Lena had always suspected there was more to Stella's story, but until now, she had never had the chance or the clarity to investigate. She pulled out her laptop and typed Stella's name into the search engine. Social media profiles, news articles, even minor gossip threads, it all painted a picture of a girl who had been struggling, hiding, surviving. There were hints of late-night jobs, of moving between cheap apartments, of avoiding anyone who might ask questions. Her heart ached as she read the tiny breadcrumbs of her sister's hardships. Lena leaned back in her chair, closing her eyes. So you suffered too, she whispered. And I punished you for it, even in my own mind. For a fleeting moment, Lena imagined helping Stella secretly, slipping her food, sending her money, even offering her a safe place to rest. But she shook her head. The memories of her future timeline were too vivid. The heartbreak of losing her son, the endless whispers of gossip, the betrayal of her own family. It had all come crashing down on her once. She couldn't allow herself to be pulled into that pain again. A soft chime from her phone startled her. It was a message from Carol. Lunch today? I know things are crazy, but you deserve a break. Lena smiled faintly. At least someone outside the whirlwind remembered she existed as Lena, not as the unwilling mother or the scandal magnet her sister could become. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard, drafting a plan. If Stella had returned, it would be inevitable that the wealthy businessman she had appeared with would also come into play. Lena's instinct screamed caution. There was something about him, the way he carried himself in pictures she had stumbled across online, polished, powerful, but distant. Someone used to getting what he wanted. What did you want, Stella? Lena murmured aloud, staring at the empty dorm room wall. Was it money? Influence? Or were you just scared? The question hung in the air, unanswered. Lena realized that she couldn't truly know her sister's motives until Stella chose to step forward. Until then, all Lena could do was watch, gather information, and make sure that history didn't repeat itself. Her hand clenched into a fist. No more mistakes. No more being a victim. Outside the window, the city moved on as if nothing had happened. Inside, Lena felt the stirrings of determination. She would survive the second chance, and she would do it on her own terms. But deep down, she knew that when Stella inevitably appeared, nothing would ever be simple again. The next morning, Lena found herself at the small cafe Carol had insisted they meet at. She had hesitated. There was too much on her mind, but she needed a breather, a moment away from the suffocating swirl of family drama and neighborhood gossip. Cole was already there when she arrived, seated at a corner table with a calm, easy confidence that immediately set him apart from the chaos Lena had grown used to. He smiled warmly as she approached, standing to pull out her chair. "Lena," he greeted, voice steady. "I was hoping you'd come." She hesitated, taking in his strong features, the quiet assurance in his posture, and the faint scar along his jawline, a trace of battles fought, both visible and invisible. "You made it sound important," she said cautiously. "It is," he replied, sliding into the seat across from her. "I know you've had a lot on your plate recently, and I wanted to make sure you weren't carrying it all alone." Lena felt a twinge of gratitude mixed with skepticism. She wasn't used to people offering help without expecting something in return. "I'm managing," she said, though her voice lacked conviction. Cole leaned forward slightly, studying her carefully. "You don't have to do it alone. I've seen what people are capable of. The world can be cruel, and sometimes family even more so. But you're stronger than most. I just want to be someone you can rely on." Something in his tone, a quiet understanding, the lack of pressure, made her chest tighten. He wasn't offering pity or judgment, just presence. And for Lena, that alone was rare. Over lunch, Cole shared a little about himself. He had been in the military, stationed overseas for several years, and had returned home to start a small restaurant. The discipline, the resilience, the way he spoke about responsibility, it all painted a picture of a man who could be trusted, someone who could anchor her in the storm of her life. "And you?" he asked, tilting his head. "Tell me about you. Not the family drama, not the chaos, just you." Lena blinked, caught off guard. She wasn't used to being asked that question. "Me," she repeated, her lips twitching. "Well, I work in sales, I live in a dorm nearby, I have a complicated family. And apparently, I'm always in some sort of scandal." Cole chuckled, the sound warm and genuine. "Complicated family, scandal, sounds like you've been through a lot. But you're still standing. That tells me you're someone worth knowing." For the first time in weeks, Lena felt a flicker of ease. Conversation flowed effortlessly, laughter punctuating the moments that had once felt heavy with dread. She realized that while the past haunted her, having someone like Cole, steady, dependable, and kind, offered a small but vital anchor. As they left the cafe, walking side by side along the bustling street, Lena felt a subtle, unfamiliar warmth. It was the beginning of trust, and perhaps something more. She didn't have the answers yet about Stella, the baby, or the family drama that was waiting to erupt, but for the first time, she didn't feel completely alone. And that, Lena thought, was a start. Lena returned to her apartment that evening, her mind buzzing with unease. The encounter with Stella's baby and the chaos at the cafe had left her temporarily distracted, but a creeping suspicion lingered. It started with small things. Whispers at work, casual comments that seemed innocent but carried sharp undertones, messages on social media that hinted someone knew more than they should. Lena's instincts, sharpened by the painful memories of her previous life, told her that someone was trying to manipulate events, to make her look guilty or responsible for Stella's disappearance and her baby. She sat at her desk, opening a folder she had quietly begun compiling, screenshots, notes, and observations. Among the names on her list, one stuck out: Dr. Evan White. The man who had delivered Stella's baby seemed too slippery, too eager to absolve himself, while subtly throwing Lena into the spotlight. Her memory of the previous timeline resurfaced sharply. Dr. White had always been there, a silent architect behind much of the heartbreak. Was he being coerced this time? Or was he playing a deeper game, waiting to see how things unfolded? Lena's gut told her the truth lay somewhere in between. Her phone buzzed with a message from Carol. "Lena, I saw your mom talking to Mrs. Gable again. Something's brewing. Be careful." Lena's heart skipped a beat. It wasn't just the family or Stella, someone else was pulling strings, someone who had figured out the chaos her sister's actions could cause. Lena leaned back, crossing her arms. This time she wouldn't be a pawn. Using the knowledge of her past life, she began to map the situation. Dr. White, possibly coerced or manipulative but observant and calculating. Stella, desperate, scared, possibly hiding more than just the truth about the baby. Family, well-meaning but gullible, easily swayed by appearances. Unknown instigators, jealous coworkers, neighbors, or even distant relatives who thrived on scandal. Lena knew she couldn't confront anyone directly yet. The wrong move could set the stage for disaster. Instead, she would observe, record, and plan. She would let the schemers make their moves, and when the time was right, she would turn the game around. Her fingers drummed on the desk. "You thought you could trap me, manipulate me, and watch me suffer again," she muttered, her voice low and dangerous. "Not this time. I see the board now. And I'm not just playing, I'm controlling it." A soft knock on her door startled her. Cole stepped in, sensing her tension. "You look like you've been through a war," he said quietly. "I have," Lena admitted, offering a tight smile. "But this time, I'm the general." Cole raised an eyebrow, impressed and slightly amused. "Then I'll follow your orders, General. Whatever you need." Lena felt a flicker of reassurance. Allies mattered, and for the first time, she had one she could trust, someone who wouldn't judge or abandon her. Together, they would navigate the schemes, uncover the lies, and protect her from repeating the painful cycle of the past. She turned back to her laptop, opening her folder once more. The game had begun, and Lena was ready to play it her way. Lena's heart thudded as she walked past the glass doors of the office building, clutching her bag a little too tightly. She had gone out for lunch, trying to ignore the tight knot of worry that had settled in her stomach since the family confrontation. But fate, it seemed, had other plans. From across the street, she caught sight of a familiar figure, slender, poised, and unmistakable. Stella. She was laughing. The sound carried faintly on the breeze, but Lena didn't hear humor. She saw threat. Manipulation. The sister who had abandoned a baby, who had shattered her life once before, now strolling through the neighborhood like she owned the world. And beside her, the businessman she had heard about, tall, impeccably dressed, exuding confidence and wealth, a hand possessively on Stella's lower back. Lena's hands curled into fists at her sides. Anger, jealousy, and protective instincts surged together in a confusing, volatile mix. She had survived this timeline once, but now, Stella's return wasn't just a ghost of the past, it was a threat. A threat to her independence, to the careful life she was starting to build, and most dangerously, to Cole. She remembered the stories from Carol. The way gossip spread faster than wildfire, the way a single sighting could fuel lies. If Stella started weaving stories again, Lena could lose everything. Her job, her reputation, even her budding romance with Cole could be endangered before it had a chance to bloom. Lena gritted her teeth, forcing herself to stay calm. She couldn't confront her sister now, not in public, not without a plan. But she could watch. She could gather information, observe patterns, and anticipate her sister's moves before they spiraled out of control. Through the reflective glass of a cafe window, Lena watched Stella lean closer to the businessman, whispering something with a sly smile. Something in the tilt of her head, the curve of her mouth, told Lena that Stella had not changed. She was still scheming, still calculating, still ready to manipulate anyone in her path. A flicker of fear passed through Lena, just for a moment, before determination took over. Not this time, she thought. I'm not the same Lena who let this happen before. I won't be caught off guard. I won't lose myself again. As she turned away, planning her next move, a subtle pang of jealousy hit her chest. Not for the businessman, Not really. But for the time Stella had stolen from her, years spent raising a child that wasn't hers, heartbreak that could have been avoided, freedom that had been ripped away. Lena squared her shoulders. She would protect her life, her heart, and her future this time. Stella might cast a long shadow, but Lena had learned how to step into the light, even when danger lurked at the edges. And if Stella thought she could play the same game twice, Lena silently promised herself she was in for a surprise. The next few weeks passed in a blur of activity, but for the first time, Lena felt like she was living on her own terms. Each morning, she walked into the office with her shoulders squared, her mind focused, and a quiet sense of control she had never known in her past life. Her career was flourishing. A challenging project that had once seemed insurmountable now felt like an opportunity rather than a burden. Lena's colleagues noticed the change in her demeanor. Confidence replaced the tension that had always clung to her like a shadow. She laughed more, spoke more, and for the first time in years, she felt her worth outside the confines of family expectations or societal judgment. Cole became a steady presence in her life. Lunches turned into coffee breaks into weekend dinners. There was no rush, no pressure, only a growing bond that neither of them needed to label yet. He listened, supported, and most importantly, allowed Lena to breathe without judgment. In his company, she rediscovered the simplicity of trust. At work, Lena found herself drawn to mentoring a young intern named Mia. The girl was eager, bright, but inexperienced, much like Lena had once been when her life had been dictated by others. Lena guided her gently, sharing professional wisdom and occasionally offering life advice. "You don't have to let others define your path," Lena told Mia one afternoon. "You can make your own choices, and yes, you might stumble, but that's how you grow." Mia's eyes widened with admiration. "I wish I had someone like you before," she whispered. Lena smiled, a warmth spreading through her chest. This, she realized, was the kind of nurturing she could control. The motherly instincts that had once been forced upon her by circumstance could now be channeled where they were wanted and appreciated. Evenings became a mix of small routines and little pleasures. Quiet walks with Cole, reading in her apartment, preparing meals that didn't need to be rushed, and sending occasional texts to Carol, laughing over the absurdity of their intertwined lives. Yet, no matter how peaceful her new life felt, Lena couldn't completely shake the tension of the past. She often found herself glancing over her shoulder, expecting Stella's shadow to appear. But this time, Lena was different. She had learned to anticipate, to protect, to act decisively. She compared the chaos of her previous timeline to the calm she was slowly building now. Where she had once been reactive, anxious, and isolated, she was now proactive, confident, and connected. Every choice she made, every step she took, reinforced that she was reclaiming her life, not for anyone else, but for herself. And as Lena tucked herself into bed each night, she felt a quiet satisfaction, a sense of security that had once been impossible. The storm of family, gossip, and past mistakes was still out there, waiting, but she was no longer afraid. She had built a life worth protecting, and she would protect it, no matter what shadows approached. Lena had just settled into her apartment with a cup of tea when a soft knock sounded at her door. She tensed, instinctively reaching for the edge of her bag. Visitors weren't unusual, but with Stella back in the neighborhood, every unexpected encounter carried a hint of danger. "Who is it?" she called, her voice steady. A familiar, cautious voice replied, "Lena, it's me, Dr. White." Her first instinct was to slam the door, to block the man who had caused so much heartbreak in her previous life. But there was something in his tone, a tentative, almost pleading quality, that made her pause. She opened the door just enough to look at him. "What do you want?" she asked, arms crossed. Dr. White hesitated. "I know why you don't trust me. And you shouldn't. But I know things about Stella, things that could help you." Lena's eyes narrowed. "Why should I believe you? Last time, you were the one who enabled her lies, who stood by while I suffered." He flinched, as if struck by her words, but then nodded. "I was coerced, manipulated. I didn't have a choice before, and I regret it every day. But this time, I can give you information about where Stella went, what she did while she was gone, and what she plans next." Lena hesitated. The past flashed before her eyes, the heartbreak, the betrayal, the chaos. Yet she couldn't ignore the opportunity. Knowledge was power, and Stella's return meant danger. If she could gather intelligence, she could prevent history from repeating itself. Talk, Lena said finally, her tone sharp. Dr. White exhaled, relief flickering in his eyes. Stella didn't just vanish randomly. She had no support. She worked multiple jobs, avoided people she knew, and made alliances with, let's say, people who could offer her protection and leverage. The businessman you've seen with her isn't just a partner. He has motives of his own, control, influence, and a stake in ensuring you're sidelined. Lena's mind raced. This fit with everything she had suspected. She had anticipated Stella's schemes, but this added a layer she hadn't yet accounted for. "Why are you telling me this?" she asked, suspicion sharpening her tone. "Because if you don't know, you'll be blind. And Stella, she's cunning. She'll exploit every weakness you have, every past mistake, to destabilize you. I can't undo my mistakes from before, but I can help you now." Lena leaned back, absorbing the weight of his words. Trusting him would be risky. Betraying him, or underestimating him, could be deadly. Yet, her knowledge of the past gave her an advantage. She could use what he told her strategically, controlling how much she revealed and how she acted. "Fine," she said finally. "But this is a temporary arrangement. I decide the terms. You give me information, nothing more. And if I catch you lying—" "You won't," he interrupted quickly. "I won't lie again." Lena studied him a moment longer, then nodded. "Then talk. And Dr. White, one wrong move, and you'll regret it more than ever before." As he began recounting what he knew, Lena felt the thrill of strategy awaken inside her. The pieces were finally falling into place. Allies, enemies, and shadows of the past. All of it was within her grasp. And this time, she wouldn't be a pawn. She would play the game, and she would win. The dinner invitation had come as a surprise, slipped under Lena's apartment door in a delicate envelope with her parents' handwriting. "Family dinner tonight. Important. Be there." Lena had debated ignoring it, but curiosity and the need to assert herself drew her out. She arrived just as the golden light of sunset warmed the dining room. Her parents smiled nervously from their seats, clearly aware that this gathering was charged with tension. And then she saw her. Stella entered with her usual poise, arm linked with the businessman, gold chain glinting in the fading light. She paused mid-step, eyes locking with Lena's. That casual smile, effortless and precise, carried a warning. "I know how to play the game." "Lena," Stella began, her voice smooth, "it's good to see you." Lena's jaw tightened. "Stella." Her single word carried everything: anger, disbelief, and the memory of the pain Stella had caused. Their parents exchanged uneasy glances, sensing the storm before it struck. Lena sat, refusing to show weakness, while Stella slipped into the chair beside her father, whispering something that made him flush and nod. "Lena," Stella continued, turning her gaze toward her, "I wanted to apologize for disappearing. I was young, scared, and I had no idea how to handle." "Handle what?" Lena cut in, voice firm. "Abandoning a child? Running off while leaving a mess for me to clean up? Is that what you call handling it?" Stella's smile faltered, replaced by a calculated calm. "You know, Lena, it's easy to see things as black and white. But life is more complicated than your narrative. Maybe my choices were selfish, but I did what I thought was necessary. And I did what I had to for the baby." Lena's eyes narrowed. She knew better than to take this at face value. Something was being hidden, always hidden. Her attention flicked to the businessman. He said nothing, but his presence was commanding. The way he subtly leaned into Stella, the occasional glance at Lena, it was clear he had a stake in controlling the story. Protecting Stella, yes, but perhaps using her too. Cole had arrived quietly, taking a seat at the end of the table, his presence a steadying anchor for Lena. He didn't interfere, but his attentive gaze told her he was aware of every nuance, every slight movement. She found strength in his calm, a silent reminder that she wasn't alone in this confrontation. Stella lowered her voice, speaking only to Lena. "You think you know the whole story, but you don't. The father, my choices, the people I trusted, there's more than you realize." Lena's pulse quickened. "Then tell me," she said, leaning forward. "Or are you going to keep twisting the truth while pretending to be the victim?" For a moment, Stella's expression hardened, a flash of something. Fear? Anger, breaking through her carefully constructed mask. Then she smiled again, deliberately, teasingly. "All in due time, sister. Patience is everything." Lena exhaled slowly, forcing herself to stay calm. She realized this wasn't just about the past or the baby, it was a game of control, manipulation, and information. And she had the advantage this time, knowledge, strategy, and allies who could see the pattern she could. She looked at Cole, then at her parents, and finally back at Stella. "Fine," she said, voice low but firm. "Keep your secrets. But know this, I'm not the same Lena you left behind. And I will uncover the truth, one way or another." Stella's smile didn't waver, but for the first time, Lena noticed a subtle flicker of uncertainty in her eyes. The game had begun. The next morning, Lena awoke with a clarity she had never felt before. No longer would she let others dictate her life or manipulate the truth. The past had been a lesson, and now it was time to act, swiftly, decisively, and strategically. Her first move was to confront the lingering manipulators in her life. She called Dr. White, instructing him to provide her with all the information he had about Stella, the businessman, and anyone who might interfere with her life. She made it clear she wouldn't tolerate deception. Next came her parents. Lena didn't knock or wait for an invitation. She walked into their home, calm but commanding. "We need to set the record straight," she said, ignoring their surprised expressions. "I will not be your scapegoat for Stella's mistakes anymore. From now on, any responsibility you wish me to bear must be discussed openly. No manipulation, no lies, no excuses." Her parents listened in silence, the weight of her words settling over them. Lena continued, "And if anyone tries to twist my actions or my words, I will confront them publicly. I will not allow gossip or fear to control me again." With her family boundaries set, Lena turned her attention to her son. She had already learned from the past how vital it was to establish a clear, loving, and truthful relationship. Calling him over, she spoke softly but firmly. "I am your aunt, yes," she explained. "But I am also someone who cares about you deeply. I want you to know the truth always. Nobody will manipulate you or make you choose sides. You can trust me." Her son's eyes widened, hesitant but attentive. Lena smiled, a mixture of warmth and authority radiating from her. It was a new kind of motherly presence, one rooted in honesty, respect, and protection rather than obligation or guilt. The final, and perhaps boldest, step was her professional life. Lena had spent months building credibility and independence at work. Now she began publicly taking the lead on projects, mentoring colleagues like Mia, and demonstrating her value with visible results. Her colleagues noticed the change. Lena wasn't just competent. She was confident, assertive, and unshakable. By evening, she felt a shift within herself. She had acted where she previously would have reacted. She had set boundaries, reclaimed respect, and strengthened relationships built on trust rather than fear. As Cole arrived, she greeted him with a smile that was more genuine than it had been in years. "I've taken control," she said simply, leaning against the doorway. He studied her for a moment, a mix of admiration and affection in his eyes. "I see that. And I'm proud of you, Lena." For the first time, Lena allowed herself a small, private satisfaction. She was no longer at the mercy of fate, family, or her sister's schemes. She had learned that being proactive, strategic, deliberate, and self-assured was more powerful than any reaction born of fear or desperation. This was her turning point. The storm of the past might still loom on the horizon, but Lena had staked her claim over her life. And anyone who underestimated her would soon discover that the Lena standing before them now was not the same one who had once been broken. The future was hers to shape, and she intended to do it without compromise. The community hall buzzed with anticipation. Lena had called a family and neighborhood meeting, not out of pride but necessity. It was time to reveal the truth, to clear her name, and to bring justice to the chaos that Stella and her manipulations had caused. Standing at the front of the room, Lena's presence was calm, controlled, and commanding. Her parents sat to one side, eyes wide, while neighbors and friends whispered in curiosity. Stella and her businessman partner arrived last, confident, as if the evening would prove nothing more than her charm and lies. Lena began with a measured voice. "I'm here today not to shame anyone, but to reveal the truth. For years, I was blamed, manipulated, and forced into decisions that were not mine to make. That stops now." The room quieted. Even Stella's smile faltered slightly under Lena's unwavering gaze. Dr. White stepped forward, uncomfortable yet resolute. Lena had already extracted his confession, the ways he had been coerced to support Stella's lies, the letters and documents forged under pressure, and the schemes designed to shift blame onto Lena. With each revelation, Lena spoke clearly, presenting evidence, timelines, and testimonies from allies who had witnessed events unfold. She spoke of Stella's disappearance, the motives behind her return, and the involvement of the businessman who had sought to control the narrative. When it came time to address the baby, Lena's tone softened. "This child is innocent in all of this," she said. "He deserves stability, honesty, and love. Stella, it is your responsibility to care for him with transparency and integrity. The community and I will support that, but not manipulation or deceit." Stella opened her mouth, ready to argue, but found no ground to stand on. The evidence was overwhelming, the witnesses credible, and Lena's composure undeniable. Slowly, the facade crumbled. The businessman beside Stella shifted uncomfortably, realizing his influence over the situation was limited. He no longer seemed confident, only calculating. Lena knew she had neutralized his power as well. By the end of the evening, the hall was filled with murmurs of admiration for Lena's courage and clarity. Her parents approached her, visibly ashamed but grateful. "We should have listened to you years ago," her mother whispered. "We see now how strong and right you were." Lena smiled, a mixture of relief and quiet triumph. "It's never too late to do what's right," she replied. Cole, who had stood silently at the edge of the room, came forward and took her hand. "I've seen your strength," he said, "and I know that together, we can face anything." Lena's heart swelled. This was more than victory over deception. It was redemption. Justice had been served, but more importantly, she had reclaimed her life, her dignity, and her future. As she looked at her parents, at Cole, and at the community who now understood the truth, Lena felt a deep, abiding peace. The past no longer held power over her, and the future, her future, was hers to shape. Stella, now stripped of the power her lies once held, left quietly, her expression unreadable. Lena knew that lessons had been learned, though perhaps only by some. For Lena, this was closure. And as the evening wound down, with laughter, warm embraces, and quiet congratulations, Lena realized she had not only survived her second chance, she had mastered it. The morning sun poured through Lena's apartment window, casting a warm glow over a life she had fought hard to reclaim. The past years, the mistakes, the betrayals, the heartbreak, felt distant now, like a storm that had finally passed. Cole was in the kitchen, humming softly as he brewed coffee. The aroma filled the room, a small, comforting reminder that life could be simple, joyful, and steady. Lena smiled, watching him move with ease. In this life, she didn't have to shoulder every burden alone. She had chosen carefully, and this was her reward. A partner who matched her strength, her patience, and her trust. Her phone buzzed, a message from her parents. "We're proud of you, Lena. Thank you for teaching us the importance of truth and courage." She typed a quick reply, gratitude in her words, but no need for validation. Her life was hers to define. Then came a message from Stella. Short, hesitant, and carefully measured. "I hope one day we can have a proper conversation. For the baby." Lena read it, then placed the phone down without replying. She had forgiven, in her own way, but reconciliation was a choice she didn't need to rush. Boundaries had been set, lessons had been learned, and her peace was not negotiable. Instead, she poured herself a cup of coffee and sat at the window, watching the city stir to life. She thought about the past life she had lost and the second chance she had been given. Every heartbreak, every setback, every moment of despair had led her here, to independence, clarity, and fulfillment. Her son, now secure in Stella's honest care, was safe and loved. Cole, her steady anchor, was by her side. Her career flourished, her friendship strengthened, and her choices were finally her own. Lena took a deep breath, feeling the weight of her past lift with each heartbeat. She was no longer a victim of circumstance or manipulation. She had rewritten her story, not through luck, but through courage, wisdom, and unwavering determination. And as she looked out over the city skyline, a quiet smile touched her lips. The future was open, bright, and entirely hers. She had survived. She had grown. She had mastered the second chance she'd been given. And this time, Lena was unstoppable,